Welcome to today's podcast. My name is Pearlie Burr, and I will be your host. Today's podcast guest is Roy Silliker. Roy is the General Manager and CEO of the New Brunswick Construction Safety Association. Welcome, Roy.
Thanks, Pearlie.
Last year, Roy was a guest on our podcast and talked to us about the New Brunswick Construction Association and the products and services that they provide to the New Brunswick construction industry. Today, he's here to talk to us about one other of the initiatives that has been undertaken by the NBCSA this year, that being addressing the issue of suicide in the construction industry. First, let's go over some statistics, Roy, and you sent me a PowerPoint presentation with some of those statistics that you folks had put together last fall. Do you want to go through those for us?
They was actually put together by Newfoundland and their Newfoundland Construction Safety Association. So I will go over some of them, but basically there's 12 people who die from suicide each day in Canada. There's 45,000 deaths by suicide each year in Canada. Now, this doesn't take in just construction. This is overall. For every one suicide death, there are 5 self-inflicted injuries, hospitalizations, and up to 20 to 30 attempts. 1 in 5 Canadians experience a mental health problem or mental health issue each year. There's over 500,000 Canadians miss work each week due to mental illness. 70% of Canadians employed are concerned about the psychological health and safety of their workplace. In 2011, it cost employers more than $6 billion in lost productivity from absenteeism. Suicide is responsible for over 30% of the disability claim cost. Suicide rates are 3 times higher in men than in women. That's a few of the information that we got over the last few years, Pearlie, and kind of got us ball rolling.
Now, as well, in the information you sent to me, you sent me a table that talked about the distress triggering life events. Do you want to talk about those for a second?
Yeah, we looked at different triggers, and the Newfoundland Association, Newfoundland Construction Safety Association, did an excellent job, and I'll explain a little later about their program that they're working on and where they're going with it. But some of the triggers that happen, and especially for construction workers, is we're seeing relationship breakdowns, family crisis, conflict, financial problems, recent and pending unemployment, work problems, pending legal matters, chronic stress, child custody disputes, and grief. And we see those because of the construction industry and the way the construction industry is based and the way people work in our industry. We're transient force. We go all over the province, all over the country, actually, and it causes a lot of stress triggers for our people. And that's why we feel it's more important in the construction sector.
Now, you also mentioned some industry risk factors specific to the construction industry.
Yeah, like our industry is high work, it's high risk work, pressure cooker stresses, transient. So we have seasonal work. So they work for part of the year and they don't work for the other part of the year, which is always a problem. Lack of education and training on mental health topics. We're all, no one likes to talk about those issues and those problems. High job demands. Fly in, fly out camp life. So we have a lot of people that do the fly in, fly out camp life, which is a tough life. Access to lethal means. So the lack of access to quality health care. A culture of heavy alcohol and substance use. A lot of free time causes that problem. Male-dominant industry, which is we're starting to see more females, but there's still a very male-dominant industry. Chronic pain, physical illness, poor coping mechanisms, financial management issues. I mean, when you're working, having two home locations and a work location, trying to manage both of them at the same time. And the stigma towards mental health issues we see is a big issue. That's one of the ones I see as a big issue is the stigma. The tough guy attitude. So we're so tough, we don't, everything, flies off our back. Lack of job security. We don't talk about that. So people will actually deny talking about anything like mental health. Discrimination and harassment. Little social support, relationships, and shame, fear of failure, and long hours. We work long hours, especially when we are working, maybe only 6 months a year, but they work long hours and they're sleep deprived.
So when you go through that long list of factors, I guess you could say working against mental health, how do you go about to sort of try to break the wall, so to speak, and try to get through to these guys and ladies about the kinds of things that you might do to help out?
Well, it's going to be education for sure. We're going to have to up our education level on the mental health side of it, and get it known in the workplaces that mental health is an illness like anything else. It's a medical condition, and we have to see when it's happening, be able to spot when it's happening, and so on and so forth, and see how we can help it. Now we have done some things with Newfoundland Construction Safety has done a lot of stuff with the NB-MAPS program, the NB-MAPS program, the MATES program, and the MATES program came from Australia. And the guy that started the MATES program in Australia, he had his son had committed suicide, and he seen a reason for something to happen, so he started development. It's gone a long way since then. It made it to North America. And we're working with our partners across the country. We're trying to do that type of scenario where we can create a program more like, similar to an employee family assistance program, where you have key people in an organization that are mentors and do the things that you need to do to help the people that are needing assistance, and being able to spot what problems people are having. Like, John's having a bad day, so you kind of keep an eye on John type thing and say, John, is there anything we can do to help you, and so on and so forth. So that's where we're going to go. Now, we're just starting in February. We're having our first meeting of the Canadian Federation of Construction Safety Associations. We've created a mental health subcommittee, and that's one of the things we're going to look at. We're going to get the Newfoundland to do a little bit of a presentation to them and see how they like it, and see if we can get it going. We would like to do it Canada-wide. One thing we've learned through the Canadian Federation over the last several years is we've done things on our own, and then we try and make it a national thing, and everyone does their own little thing, and then you try and make it it takes twice as long. So we're hoping that if we can get this thing going and make it the same across the country, then people will understand that it's the same product across the country. And that's kind of where we're going with it. We're just getting off the ground, Pearly, but that's kind of where we're going with it.
The Australian program, what can you tell us about how that works?
So basically, the Australian program kind of sets up a scenario where they have a pathway, and you have workers, and you have one key person in the workforce, in that work group, that is kind of a mentor. And that's the person that they can go to talk to or to assist. Then you have that person is trained, they call them connectors. So that person is trained to provide the pathway to help for the workers. So if the connector is the person that's trained, and you go to him, then he knows or she knows areas that they can move on to get the help that they need. So it could be counseling, it could be alcohol, drug help, it could be legal assistance. All of these things are taught to the connector to do, right? So then, as the connector does his job and he steps away, then it's taken over by the professionals that we direct them to. Of course, like anything at all, I hate to say this, but money is a factor, right? Money is going to be a factor. Mm-hmm. We have to come up with a way of trying to get some assistance for this. Now, we have had some discussions. Newfoundland has had some discussions with the federal people, and we're hoping that we can get some assistance to get this thing off the ground. And then, of course, contractors in each jurisdiction are going to have to try and get on board to volunteer their time and services or whatever to be able to get the project going.
Have you heard much from the New Brunswick industry as such about the issue of suicide?
Unfortunately, yes. Statistics are terrible. I mean, statistics are terrible when it comes to suicide. We know that there's lots of suicide, but we don't know the ones that are attempted suicides, right? So, but we've had situations in this province already where we've had employers call us and ask us to give them some assistance because they've had someone on their site attempt a suicide or caught them before they attempted a suicide. I mean, it can right down to one scenario, Pearlie, and I know this is very sensitive, but it can be under a scenario where they actually found a noose on the site, and the person that was working in that area was planning to attempt, and was caught and helped. Thank God, helped beforehand.
Have you been able to provide assistance in those kinds of cases? Do you have resources that you can recommend?
We have some resources, some counselors that we know of. But what we've done in most of the cases is referring them to Newfoundland to get materials from Newfoundland to help with that scenario. It's a very touchy situation because people don't like to butt in other people's lives. But in a case like this, I mean, I personally have lived through a suicide in my family, so I know what suicide does to a family. You want to be able to make sure that you can do everything humanly possible to ensure that doesn't happen, right? So, yeah, it's a tough, sensitive topic, but it's a topic that we have to hit head on, and we have to start finding more resources, more income. Because if you just send them to the ER, they're lost. They're lost, right? They're never going to get anywhere. You need to have that professional help that can come in right away and do it. Unfortunately, that does cost dollars, but I feel it's dollars well spent. And, we as an association are looking at putting some of our own dollars that we have saved towards this project because we feel it's important.
Why specifically has Newfoundland been a lead on this?
Newfoundland got involved because they've seen a very large number of suicides in their industry in Newfoundland, and they've seen a lot of attempts in Newfoundland, and that's what really got the ball going, and that's what we're starting to see now. It's the not seen that's the problem. It's the cases where you don't know it's happening until it happens, and that's where we want to get away from. We want to get to the point where we actually know there's a problem, address the concern, talk to the individual, give them some assistance or her some assistance, then they can move on and lead a very productive life. I mean, a lot of the times it's just getting people over a hurdle. I mean, if you're a construction worker and you're working away and, you're trying to run a household at home, you're trying to live at your job site, and you're trying financially to do both, you're missing kids, you're missing the wife, it causes a lot of stress. So we want to try and help with.
Yes, when you look at the industry factors, there's just so many of them. And I guess one question that would pop into my mind is how do you as an association convince the owners of a construction company, for example, or the lead people to take the time to try to get to better understand what's going on? They're under so much pressure as it is to get projects done, get them done on time, schedule issues, getting product, getting staff. That's another pressure.
I think the industry or most of the industry has realized that in today's times, it's very difficult to keep your workforce. It's very difficult to find new workforce. It's very difficult to find people to come into your workforce. So I think they've all realized that we have to start doing things to keep our workforce the way it is today. Last year at our professional development day, we had Newfoundland talk to our attendees, and we had about 90 people attend our professional development day last year. So we had a good base of contractors across the province, and I was overly impressed, I have to say, with the reaction from the crowd. There was lots of questions asked. There was lots of information, and I couldn't believe it. Within a half an hour after her presentation, I received 8 or 9 emails from companies that were at the presentation saying, we want to be part of this. We want to be part of this. I mean, and I'm talking contractors that have 100 employees, and I'm talking contractors that have 10 to 15 employees. So they see the importance of it, I think. I think it's there. And that's where we're going to hopefully do is once we get this ball rolling, we'll be starting up provincially, what I'm going to be doing is starting up a group from the federal to the provincial saying, okay, bringing those people into the picture and having a subcommittee of those group to get the ball rolling.
Now, at your professional development day, what kind of comments did you hear from your audience after her presentation?
Most of them were all in the same aspect where they said they seen the stresses, they seen the employees with the stresses, they seen issues where they, again, no one likes to talk about it because it's mental health and it's suicide, but they seen concerns that they had that might cause problems for them down the road and for their employees down the road. And it's our economy is changed. Our workplace has changed a lot over the last 20 years. And I mean, people are now seeing the benefit of having a health and safety workforce, right? So, and that's, you know, we talk about safety being your hard hat, your safety boots, and your fall protection gear, and so on and so forth. But we never think of the psychological side or the mental health side of it. And if that's not healthy, then your job site's not going to be healthy. Because if someone is working with somebody that they're nervous around because of concerns, then that's going to just balloon farther and farther throughout the whole project, right? So they're seeing that, and the questions were asked were actually, like, a lot of them asked questions along how can we support, how can we help, and I don't know the answers to those questions right yet because we don't know where we're going to go with this and how we're going to get there. But I do appreciate the fact that I had that many contractors right away come out and say, we want to help you. And that was just the contractors that were in that room. So when I started advertising this to my membership, I mean, we have 3,200 members in our membership. So different companies that are construction companies. So if I start advertising that to all these people saying, you know, we want to help, can you help us? Can you help us? I think I'm going to see a lot more companies come forward and say, yeah, we're interested in this. We already have companies in this province that have mental health projects on the go now. I mean, Bird Construction, for example, has a project. They have a program in place right now. It's a national thing, and they've carried it on to the provincial thing. And companies like that see, they've seen the triggers, they've seen the stress signals, they've seen the factors. So now they're saying, let's do something about it.
Well, look, Rory, it's certainly a great initiative. We all know, I think, that we need a lot more support for the workers out there that are in some pretty tough situations.
Yep.
Before we leave and finish off, you were involved, or you attended, I should say, some meetings with the road builders in the last couple of weeks. From a point of view of the upcoming construction season, they tell us snowstorms coming up and the best of winter is yet to come, but probably won't be long before we'll start to see a lot more construction on the go. Any comments that came out of the road builders as to what they might expect this coming season?
They suspect it's going to be a very busy season. According to the minister's announcement and stuff, there's going to be a lot of projects going on this year in the road industry. There's actually a list. If you go to the website for the DTI now, there's a list of tenders that are going to be coming out. And yes, there is a lot of work projected for the coming year. They still got a lot of work from previous projects, a lot of bridges that are being built right now. Our bridges in this province are in pretty bad state, so there's going to be a lot of bridge work coming out over the next few years. Overall, the feel for that group is that it's going to be a very busy year. I have to make one note, and it's nothing to do with suicide. It's nothing to do with anything else, but it's a very a note I think should be made with the road builders at the closing banquet at the road builders annual AGM this week. We always at the road builders their choice is Children's Wish Foundation. They're very involved with the Children's Wish Foundation. In 2024, they had their biggest fundraiser for the Children's Wish since the beginning of their doing it. And on that 2-day event, they raised $108,000.
Fantastic.
Yeah, $108,000. Like that's just unbelievable to raise that kind of money. And I can't remember how they put it, but I think a typical wish for the Wish Foundation, a typical wish is around $10,000. So
Great.
basically, there's almost 11 wishes granted in that one event right there. And those road builders put their money where their mouth is when it comes time to donate. I have to say that for them. They have always been great at donating, and they put a lot of money into that event.
Yeah, and those are the kind of things, Rory, we don't hear enough about.
No.
The support that's provided by some of these organizations. What are you hearing about building construction for the upcoming season?
Building construction is going to be, as far as the building, DTI again, and the building side, they're going to be up. I've noticed a couple things in the residential that they say the residential permits are way up this year. Of course, there's a lot of commercial there's a lot of apartment building complexes going up. So we see a lot more work in the future for our industry. Our industry has been very fortunate over the last couple of years. We've been able to keep our costs, our accidents down some. We've had a couple of fatalities, unfortunately, but that's an ongoing thing. We always want to try and work on those fatalities, make sure that we can have them at zero. But it's no different than the Suicide Prevention Act. We want to get something in place, and hopefully it'll follow through. But it's an ever-growing matter. Safety is an ever-growing matter. It never comes off the shelf. It's got to keep growing every year. It's got to keep growing.
Is it safe to say the biggest issue in the construction industry is staffing?
I would say that's probably one of the biggest issues in the construction industry. The other issue is we're starting to see some more immigrants coming into the industry now. We're starting to see a little bit more of that, which is good, which is really good. But with that comes problems. Language problems, training problems, religious culture problems. So it's going to be an uphill battle, but I think we're starting to get a little bit better control of it, and we're starting to see. We have companies now that bring in workers from the Philippines and so on and so forth, and they're finding them great employees. They're great employees, and just to get over that culture change again and get that out of the way. And then once that's out of the way, I think it's going to be good. But yeah, I would say that our industry is the biggest problem. Our industry is people finding appropriate people. I know even myself, Pearlie, and I know you're in the safety profession as well. When I go out for looking for a new safety trainer or auditor or whatever, I'll get 60 resumes, but there's probably only 4 or 5 of them that fit the requirement of what I need. And to find people today is difficult. It is, no matter what sector you're in, it's difficult.
Now, as far as immigrants coming in, and from the different podcasts I know that I've done, companies are telling me more and more that they're hiring more and more immigrants. That's going to mean some changes for you and your association. Yeah,
we've done some things, like, for example, we have an interactive training course now for immigrants. It's more of a hands-on training session than a typical training session. So I'll take our fall protection course, for example. Our fall protection course, usually a day long. In this case, it's a 2-day course, and it's all hands-on. It's not been taken off real good. I was hoping it would take off better. It's not been taken off real good. Partnership with our Northwest Territories people, our association in the Northwest Territories has developed a Ukrainian women's course. So it's now online. We can direct them to there to get the women's training that they need, and it's all done in Ukrainian. So, we're starting to see more and more of it. I know Alberta's looking at taking their courses and making them Mandarin and in different languages. Unfortunately, the problem with immigration is when you go to do training, we've seen it when we did a course, it was more of an Arabic community, and there's so many, it's like French in New Brunswick. There's so many different dialects that you can't find one translator to translate for everybody because it doesn't work. But we've been very fortunate in our classes that we've always had a couple people in the class that could speak English quite well, and the others could speak English, but not as well. And they were able to help with translation stuff as we went. So it's worked, but yeah, my strong recommendation for government is to spend more money on education of immigrants in language first before they do too much else, because we need to get them to understand what they're being taught, right?
So from a health and safety perspective, what's your biggest challenge going to be in the upcoming construction season, Roy?
Well, there are many challenges, but I think is regulations. Regulation. We've done a lot of changes to regulations in the last little while through WorkSafe, and I find people are overwhelmed with the changes to regulations. I think we, nothing against the regulations had to be changed. There was problems with them, but I think it's overwhelmed. People are overwhelmed, and trying to get them to be comfortable. Even some of the changes that aren't big changes to them are a problem. Now, one venture that we are working on, just so you know, one venture that we are working on besides that is Silliker tool. We have got into partnership with our friends from BC, Construction Safety Association of BC, and they developed a tool for silica sand, silica dust, and how, it's basically hard to explain, but you put all your information in and it comes out with a format telling you what protective equipment you should have, what this, that, and it. We're going to, along with our partners with WorkSafe, we're going to get that for the province of New Brunswick as well. So NBCSA will probably, the way it's looking right now, we will be hosting it, but we're not going to make it restrictive to just NBCSA membership. It will be open to every company in the province of New Brunswick that deals with silica sand. So they'll get access to go into it.
Who would be the most likely to work in that area with silica sand? Well, what kinds of occupations?
The bricklayers, masonry, even the road people working on bridges and concrete. Anyone that works with concrete, that creates the dust, any of those trades, they're definitely going to be involved in silica. And silica to me is the new asbestos. Okay, silica. I don't know if you've seen the statistics from BC, but it was astounding last year. I think in BC they had 53 deaths in the construction industry, and out of the 53 deaths, I think there was 32 of them that were asbestosis.
Wow.
So mistakes from the past have come to haunt us in the future, and I see silica as I don't want silica to be a mistake from the past that comes to haunt us in the future, because when you have silica exposure, you don't see the effects maybe right away today, but you will see the effects in 20, 25 years, and that's what we're trying to prevent. I don't want another asbestos.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I've been retired from WorkSafe for about 10 years. And in the last year that I worked at WorkSafe, I was out in British Columbia and met with folks from WorkSafe BC. And one of the questions I put to them at that time was, what's your number one health and safety issue here in the province? And without a thought even, they said asbestos. And I guess at the time, I sort of looked at it and thought, well, why? And their answer was that there was so much construction taking place, especially in areas like Vancouver. Developers were buying old buildings and turning them into condos, apartments, and so on. And as they put it, in a lot of cases, they were just bringing in workers, no protections whatsoever. Yeah. And that's the kind of thing that, as you say, it doesn't necessarily show today, but it will catch up with you.
It'll catch up with you. I know personally myself. I worked construction for many years before I get into management of construction. And I worked on projects where we were working at pulp mills, and we were taking siding off the building, just ripping it off and throwing it in the dumpster. We didn't know. We had no idea. There was nothing around that back then, but all of that material was all made of asbestos. And we're ripping it off the building, throwing it in a dumpster, creating a big pile of dust. And, you wear a dust mask because it's dusty, but it's not. That's not why we didn't put the dust mask on, because we were dealing with asbestos. We put the dust mask on because it was dusty. So hopefully that dust mask did something for us. but we won't know. I've had several of the people that I worked with over the last 30, 40 years that have passed away, and most of them have passed away from diseases caused from asbestos. It's unfortunate, but true.
Yeah, in the past we thought a lot about health and safety. We tended to focus on the safety element, but the occupational health element is big. It's just it's not seen as something that happens right away, and so a lot of people don't think about it. A lot of people can relate more to an accident that happens today, that someone falls, breaks a leg. Occupational illness, as you said, it takes time.
Yeah, and if nothing else changes in the next few years, I think what you're going to see a big change in is that terminology exactly. We say health and safety, and I think the safety is going to stay going like it is, but I think you're going to see a very big upswing in the health side of it. I think people are starting to finally realize that's why we're doing this thing with mental health.
Yep.
People are starting to see that the health side of it is just as important as the safety side, and we kind of consider them to be one, but they're really not. They're separate, and one ties to the other. But if you don't have the health side, then you don't have the safety side, right?
Right. Well, look, Roy, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today. Keep up the good work you're doing relative to suicide in the construction industry. These things take time to get up and rolling, but certainly the benefits are there if you can do it. I'd like to thank everybody for listening to today's podcast. If you have a comment on today's podcast or you would like to suggest guests for the future, you can always reach us at podcast@ssnb.ca. Stay safe. See you next week.